Welcome to Gun News in 5 minutes or less, where we will talk about events and happenings in the gun industry, ammunition pricing and so forth, politics related to firearms, personalities, new releases on the market, and anything else I can fit in. This is brought to you by Dr. Drake 63. Last night, while President Biden was telling us that coronavirus is under control under his watch, the House quietly passed a couple new gun legislation laws that actually had the support of 8 Republicans, which we're not used to seeing. Of course, these kind of laws need to go through both the House and the Senate, and it's not very clear whether or not that's going to happen. Plus, there's always the constitutionality test for those of us who understand how the government works. The universal background check will, of course, affect Internet's arms sales, and yes, criminals will not obey these laws. They never do. The Republican representatives who voted in favor of this bill are as follows: Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, Vern Buchanon of Florida, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, who also co-sponsored the bill, Maria Salazar of Florida, Andrew Garbiano of New Jersey, Chris Smith of New Jersey, who also co-sponsored the bill, Fred Upton of Michigan, also a co-sponsor of the bill, and Carlos Gimenez of Florida. So there's 8 Republicans that have crossed party lines in support of this bill. H.R. 8, the universal background checks portion of the bill, passed by a vote of 227 to 203. That addresses the gun show loophole, as mentioned. It's very unclear what that means in terms of firearms being transferred between family members and things like that. But basically what the purpose of this bill is to make sure that all transfers of firearms happen through the federal licensing program. So does that mean that sites that promote gun trading and sales, such as Arms List, can't exist? No. But to legally be able to do these transfers, you're going to have to go to an FFL, a local gun shop or whatever, and complete the transfer. Not a lot of clarity in terms of, are you able to, give your son or your grandson that 22 that they've been shooting all these years and hope to inherit. 10 days for the NICS checks, that passed 219 to 210. And there were 2 Republicans, I don't have their names, who voted in favor of that. Currently, if you get delayed in your NICS check and there's no response from the government after 3 days, at that point, it's the option for the seller to proceed with the sale. They can do it without approval as long as there's not a denial. Well, this expands that 10 days. Well, that's a system in my mind that could be somewhat abused if the government just wants to say, hey, guess what? It's going to take a week minimum from now on. I believe that these particular bills are kind of a test balloon. They're amongst the easiest to pass in terms of polling numbers and things that people say that they'd be in favor of. They've still got to get through the Senate. It's going to require 60 votes, and that might be hard to do unless you have Republicans who are willing to cross party lines in support of these bills. Then what comes next? Well, there's a number of other bills that are in committee in Congress waiting to go into committee, and these things involve such as so-called assault weapons bans, high-capacity magazines, and things of that nature. Like I said, I think this is a bit of a test balloon to see if they can get some traction in where anti-gun legislation might go in terms of public opinion. Now, they couldn't have picked a tougher year to do it because people that were not traditionally in favor of owning firearms are now out there purchasing them. You look at the civil unrest in our country in conjunction with calls to reduce the staffing and size and funding of police forces, and people are putting 2 and 2 together and saying, you know what, I may need to protect myself. So I think that's kind of a backdrop to what has been kind of a steady push from an awareness standpoint, from money being spent for gun control type of traction. Of course, we'll have more updates to follow as they occur. I expect we're going to see a flurry of gun bills come out of Congress, especially based on the whether or not these 2 succeed at the Senate level. This has been Gun News in 5 minutes or less. Click and subscribe for updates.